And next we'll turn to Councilmember Brannan.
Thank you, Chairs. Thank you, Chancellor and Dr. Choksi, for being here today. I think it goes without saying when it comes to our kids and those we entrust in their care, we have to do not just the best we can, but everything we can to make sure that they're safe. And we're still in the middle of a global pandemic, so extreme caution and care really has to be our top priority. And while I certainly appreciate that the mayor has been focused on getting everyone back to school and back in our classrooms, which we know there's no substitute for in-classroom education, it's just confusing to me when every day I hear of another school district far lesser than our great school system here in the city of New York. I think there's over 80 of the largest 100 school districts across the country are offering a remote option. And it sounds like the DOE is preparing for this, but sort of holding this card for some reason. And I don't understand why. I think there's a lot of parents who would like to have that option, and I'm confused as to why we're not just putting that forward now. Why are we waiting for an inevitability where that may or may not be the case?
So I think there are two things there. One, we're not holding a card. We have put out our medically fragile option for families who want to opt into an option other than coming in person in the building. I would also say this. We know that in the event of a closure, in the event of a quarantine, we have to be prepared to pivot to remote. We are going to continue to build our system and work to be able to do that. And so we're not holding out, waiting for something to happen. We are focusing in on what we know is important, and that is to get our babies back in person. What we've heard from all of the experts and all of even our families and students, while we know that there's a sense of nervousness, we know what works best for students. We know what works best for children. You know, I have had to grapple with the same decisions that parents across New York City are making as I prepare to send my 11th grader back into a school building on public transportation. And so I understand the concern, but we're not holding back a thing. We are making sure that our system is ready to pivot, should we need to pivot, and also making sure we have an option for our medically fragile students.
Okay, but I guess that's understood, and I appreciate that. I guess what I'm hearing, though, is there's a contingency, but there's not. What other school districts are doing is giving an option up front. They're offering the option. What you're talking about is different. It's a contingency. I want to keep moving. So, as of today, how many of our schools in the city are at over 100% capacity?
Kevin?
All of our principals were provided with capacity reports across the city of New York and looked at what they were historically and where they are today. If you need updated capacity reports, we usually publish online. I'll make sure you get a copy.
Okay, I'm asking because what I'm hearing from a lot of parents and teachers as well is how will social distancing work in, let's say, a high school building that's at 183% capacity?
Yeah, we had a working group put together, and I really appreciate this question. We divided our schools into different tiers and looked at what those capacity constraints were. We looked at solutions that focused on staffing, that looked at alternate spacing, that looked at alternate spaces within a building, that also looked at alternate programs. And we've even had schools that are going to come in a little earlier in the most crowded, where we basically half the enrollment throughout the course of the day. So say, for an example, it had 4,000 students, and it's considered overcrowded. We would never, in this model, have more than 2,500 kids in a building at any one given time. So really like half that capacity. So, you know, it does require some flexibility. It requires some student and family engagement. It requires some really out-of-the-box thinking. It requires union engagement. And you come out with a model that works for kids and families because, you know, when we look back, we share this mutuality, council member, about how we're getting through a pandemic. And there are some give and some takes. And so some kids are coming in at 7:15, some kids are staying until 5:30. And so, but that's how we're doing it. There's multiple approaches. We spent many months over the summer waiting for the CDC guidance and the state's guidance, and we're going to toe the line. And so we're getting 3 feet wherever possible. And you could assume in a classroom the spatial orientation varies. We've removed furniture in some instances. So these are unique. I'll be out of the school tomorrow. I go to schools as much as I can. And we support schools. Sometimes it's moving furniture. Sometimes moving some things they've acquired over the last 15 to 20 years that have filled the classroom, and we can gain space back through storage. And so there's a lot happening there, but if there are those in your district, I do know that there are some overcrowded schools in your district, we can talk about it.
Yeah, I guess, so, but as of right now, if I'm a parent and I have a kid in an overcrowded high school, let's say this hypothetical 4,000 kids, it's overcrowded, at this point right now on September 1st, do I know what my kid's schedule is going to be if he or she has to be in a school that's going to be at half capacity because of social distancing?
Yeah, our school leaders and principals and superintendents are working with families in real time and making those adjustments. And so that's definitely something that happens, and families will be communicated with, absolutely.
Okay. I think my colleague, Councilmember Lewis asked, but I wanted to clarify. For 3K, pre-K, early learn teachers and staff at CBOs, is there a vaccine requirement there? Because I've heard different things.
Not yet. At this time, we're focused on staff members who work in all of our DOE buildings.
So is this a state-city thing then?
It is obviously, we're not the decision makers. It is, every agency is being looked at differently as the mayor makes decisions about vaccines.
So as of right now, 3K, pre-K, early learn teachers and staff who are working at CBOs, there's not a vaccine requirement.
Today, there is not.
Okay, that sounds insane. Okay.
But let me just clarify.
Yeah.
They are in the vax or test area.
Right.
So,
You
yes,
have to show 48
yes.
hours, whatever it is.
Yes.
Is the city DOE, are we pushing to change that so it's streamlined, everything is the same across the board? Because why would it be different for pre-K, 3K and not?
Well, we're focused on what's happening in our school buildings and working with our partner agencies to make decisions about what happens next.
Okay, but all these people are in our care, right? No matter what building they're in. Last thing, I'm hearing from a lot of folks, families of D75 students, who are very concerned with, I mean, if you're a student with an IEP, the past 18 months have been a quadruple nightmare. What is being done to ensure that those services, the mandated services, are provided for those kids?
Yep. So, you're absolutely right about what it's been like for students who are most vulnerable, and we are going to continue to center and prioritize them. I'm going to ask our Deputy Chief Academic Officer, Christina Foti, to talk specifically about mandates, and supports that we're putting in place for our D75 students, but all of our students with IEPs.
Thank you.
Here you go. Perfect.
Thank you, Councilmember Brannan, and for your continued advocacy for our students with IEPs. We are very excited to be offering recovery services to every one of our students with IEPs. So we're not leaving this to chance. Every student with an IEP is eligible for recovery services this year, which means that we are sending allocations to schools that will allow them to provide after-school or Saturday programs where small group instruction will be delivered to our students with IEPs, as well as additional related services, recognizing that the need is great and we have to make up, in some instances, make up related services, but in all instances, make sure that students receive not only what is outlined on their IEPs during the school day, but that additional services are provided to every child with an IEP.
Thank you.
Thank
Your
you.
office has been fantastic. Obviously, I always worry about the folks who suffer in silence, the folks that don't know to come to their local council member for advocacy. Those are the folks I really try to think about. I'll just end with, it still just seems crazy to me that if at some point we're going to offer a remote option, I don't know why we wouldn't just join the other 80-something school districts across the country that are offering a remote option, not as a contingency, just offering it right up front if there are families that want that. I feel like it's going to happen anyway. I don't see why we wouldn't offer it now. But that's all I've got. Thank you, Chair.